All right, let's take this amazing mask off. I want to let everybody know, first and foremost, you don't have to worry about me singing. My voice is terrible, so I'm not going to torture anybody. Thank you. Alon just introduced me with a number of titles. Like most people, I wear more than one so-called hat. And like most people, my biography corresponds to a few titles or identities. Attorney, writer, very, very big fan of Italian food. Those are all identities of mine. But the two that have mattered most to me in my life are the one I was born with, Jew, and the one that I first acquired in 1995, father, Abba. Every parent here, and I know that's most of you, have understood the awesome responsibility of parenthood. The need, as Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young famously sang, to, quote, teach your children well. As a father personally, I've always tried to keep in mind the quote and admonishment by famed Israeli educator Dr. Chaim Ginot. Children are like wet cement. Whatever falls on them makes an impression. And as a person who grew up with a savta, a grandma, who was the only person in her extended family to survive the Holocaust, and who remembers hearing his first anti-Semitic slur when I was just a 5-year-old boy walking home from synagogue. I was told to take off my Jewish carpet. That boy didn't last very long with that comment. I've always wanted to protect my children as much as I can from what the late, great Rabbi Sachs, Zichronot Tzadik Levracha, often referred to as the ever-mutating virus of anti-Semitism, Jew hatred, what we're all here to fight today. Ultimately, that is what this protest is all about. It's about, as David said, protecting impressionable children. Not just Jewish children, but all children. For while the virus of anti-Semitism certainly paints a big target on the backs of the Jews, we all know what starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews, and any society that becomes too infected with the virus of Jew hatred ultimately becomes too sick to survive, let alone thrive. This is also what our controversy that we're here today to talk about, the ESMC, is exactly about. It's about us Jews and our wonderful allies here in the fight against Jew hatred saying enough is enough. Making it clear that we are no longer going to stand by and let people gaslight us about Jew hatred. About the systemic, and yes it's systemic, anti-Semitism in education and in so-called academia. After all, anyone paying attention to what it's like to be a proud Jew on most American college campuses knows exactly how widespread Jew hatred is in academia. And we've heard from some of those speakers today and what they had to go through in colleges. For decades now, on most college campuses, Jews have been told that we have to check our Jewish identity and our Jewish pride at the door if we want to be accepted. It is why Rose Witch, who identified as a proud progressive Jew at USC, just a few miles from here, after a relentless campaign of anti-Semitic cyberbullying, was forced into resigning from her student government. It's why a survey of American Jewish college students that took place 7 years ago in 2014 found that 54% of Jewish students reported experiencing or witnessing anti-Semitism on campus. 54%. That's over half of Jewish college students in America. And yet Linda Sarsour tells us that anti-Semitism is not systemic. Does 54% sound systemic to you?
Yeah!
So by 2014, it was known to anybody paying attention that over half of the Jewish students on college campuses were experiencing anti-Semitism in this country. It was also known, again, to anybody paying attention, anybody who cares, that for at least the last decade, Jews have been by a wide margin the per capita #1 target for hate crimes in America. And to any of our California legislators who have been paying attention, it's been no secret that there has been a 72% increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes in California just over the last 3 years. Yet, with this backdrop, with this knowledge, when our state government was tasked with the goal of creating an ethnic studies curriculum for California kids, they assigned that task to a veritable who's who of anti-Semitic academics in California, to people who have been at the forefront of making our college campuses no-go zones for proud Jews, to people who have been directly responsible for that 54% of Jewish kids experiencing anti-Semitism on college campuses. Barely a month ago, one of these so-called experts who was tasked by our state government to draft this ethnic studies curriculum, a woman by the name of Teresa Montano of Cal State Northridge, again, just a few miles from here, characterized the ADL, literally characterized the ADL as a white supremacist organization. How unbelievably anti-Semitic and equally unbelievably removed from reality does a person have to be to consider the ADL a white supremacist organization? And yet, Ms. Montana was selected by our government, along with many other like-minded anti-Semites, to draft an ethnic studies curriculum that was supposed to make ethnic minorities feel more included. Included in what? Hating Jews? And that is, of course, why the first draft of the ESMC was literally riddled with anti-Semitism. Because it was so plainly anti-Semitic, the draft ESMC was sent back to the drawing board twice. And while much of the overt anti-Semitism is excised from this draft, it remains deeply flawed. Because it was originally drafted by a literal who's who of Jew haters in California academia, the current version of the ESMC still actually lauds and venerates an even more well-known who's who of Jew haters. Among the people this current draft, right now being considered, encourages students, California kids, to venerate and laud as heroes are Ilhan Omar, Linda Sarsour, Helen Thomas, and Rashid Tlaib, to just mention a few of the Jew haters that are venerated in this curriculum. And the reason why this third version of the ESMC identifies Jew haters as heroic figures is because it was built on an anti-Semitic foundation by anti-Semitic architects. It also embraces an idea which leads to anti-Semitism, the idea of people who are innately oppressed or oppressors, as Joshua spoke of and Nana spoke about before. Anti-Semitism, we have to understand, is a conspiracy theory-based hatred for at least the last few hundred years. It's a conspiracy theory-based hatred about all-powerful, nefarious Jews who are looking to oppress people. And any curriculum that embraces these concepts is dangerous for the Jewish people. It was dangerous for us in Russia in 1905, in Germany in 1930, and it's dangerous for us in California in 2021. But despite these problems with the ESMC, there are many among us who claim this third version is good enough, that we shouldn't rock the boat anymore. That since we were able to get so much of the over-the-top Jew hatred out of the ESMC, we need to accept this latest draft, lest the earlier versions be adopted. We have to reject this false choice. As other speakers have noted, first and foremost because nothing prevents school districts from adopting the earlier, more anti-Semitic versions. Second, because since when is it's only a little anti-Semitic acceptable? Would anyone ever agree that a curriculum that's only a little racist is acceptable?
No way.
Would a curriculum that excised from its lesson plan overt anti-African American racism, but still lauded as heroes, modern-day racists like David Duke or Richard Spencer, ever be acceptable?
Yeah, right.
No. Would it ever be not racist enough? Of course not. Menachem Begin famously said, "I am not a Jew with trembling knees." No Jew should have trembling knees or accept the notion that we have to accept a little anti-Semitism in order to have a seat at the table when it comes to the creation of ethnic studies curriculum. I mentioned before the late great Rabbi Sachs, Zichronot Tzadik Levracha. He spoke and wrote often about the importance of education. One of my favorite quotes of his was this: "Long ago, the Jewish people came to the conclusion that to defend a country, you need an army. But to defend a civilization, you need schools. The single most important social institution is the place where we hand on our values to the next generation, where we tell our children where we've come from, what ideals we fought for, and what we learned on the way. Schools are where we make children our partners in the long and open-ended task of making a more gracious world. California is one of the most diverse, if not the most diverse states in the United States of America. It is a state that the Jewish people have contributed to mightily and in innumerable ways. We have a right to demand that the ethnic studies in the state combat all bigotry and racism, to fight all bigotry and racism, including Jew hatred, in order to help make our children our partners in the long and open-ended task of making a more gracious world. Our California students, our California kids, like my daughter, like all your sons and daughters, deserve no less. Thank you.